Israel's ambassador responding on the Iranian strikes and what's going to happen next according to the Israeli ambassador. So let's listen in.
Israel launching another round of attacks on several locations in Iran. President Trump reportedly telling ABC, quote, "I think it's been excellent and there's more to come." Joining us now to discuss is Danny Danon, the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations. Ambassador, good morning.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan.
Thank you for sharing some of your time with us, because I'm
Yeah, he definitely sounds authentic.
sure you've been exceptionally busy. Let's just talk about where things stand right now. Is this operation ongoing, and ultimately, what are the goals?
Well, the goals are very clear. We want to make sure that Iran will not pose a threat, not only against Israel, but against the entire Western civilization. And specifically, we have two main goals: to eliminate the nuclear capabilities and to stop the production of ballistic missiles. And let me elaborate on that. You know, it's not only the nuclear weapons. We all know about the uranium enrichment and about that they're getting very close to put a bomb together. But look at what they're doing with the ballistic missiles. They wanted to be at the same level of the US and Russia in terms of the quantity and the technology of the ballistic missiles. We couldn't allow it to happen. We got intel about that.
Okay, yeah, just to be clear, the United States and Russia each have I think the United States has somewhere around 5,600 nukes. Russia has somewhere around 6,000. This is what we have disclosed. However, people believe that Russia's nukes are only half functional. So their reported number of nukes is probably somewhere half of that. And then China has less than 1,000, but China is trying to pump nukes out to try to become as equal of a nuclear power as the United States. And now you've got Israel's ambassador to the UN basically saying Israel thinks Iran wants to have as many nukes as the US and Russia, which is basically going from 0 to 5,000. I mean, Russia or China has barely 300 or 400 nukes. They're having a hard time getting up there. So I feel like this claim is a little Israeli propaganda-y, but whatever. Oh my gosh, Kevin, hit play. Oh dear, what did I do? I caused problems. I fixed it.
Their intentions to create another attack against Israel. You know, we all remember what happened on October 7th, but this time they wanted to use thousands of ballistic missiles and invade into Israel with their proxies. So it was a preemptive attack. So we will continue until we will be sure that we eliminated those two capabilities.
How sure are you right now?
Well, we will have to wait and see the result of the attack of last night. It was a major attack. More than 200 aircrafts participated in the attack. Many targets, many senior military officials were eliminated last night. And we will continue until we will know that Iran is in the point that they cannot continue with their efforts.
Including the IRGC General Commander. Is there an...
Yeah, this is a fascinating mention because they're basically yeah, we don't know. We're just going to keep going until we're done. Okay. This weekend could be interesting, Len.
Tend for regime change in Iran from Israel?
Well, that's not our goal. You know, we are concerned about...
I agree that's not the goal. Like I mentioned earlier, you don't want regime change because you create a power vacuum. Who's going to take it? Israel doesn't want to take over Iran because if Israel takes over Iran, the entire Middle East will hate Israel even more because Israel's land territory will just have quintupled, or it'd be insane. It'd be probably even more than that. It'd be 10x or something, right? So you're not going to see that. So you're not going to see Israel take it over. You're not going to see in the United States take it over. That's going to piss everybody off in the area. You need to have some kind of either puppet government or really weak existing Iranian government. That's kind of what you need. You don't want no government. So you don't really want regime change because you could always get a worse government than what you had before.
The threats to Israel. For the Iranian people, I wish they would have a different regime. You know, we saw what happened in Iran. The people are suffering there. They have no heat in the winter, no AC in the summer. They are suffering there. But our goal is to eliminate the capabilities of Iran so they will not be able to threaten us. And then, Marie, look at the map. We have no border with Iran. It takes us hours to fly there in order to attack those facilities. But still, they spend billions of dollars to create threats against Israel.
This nuclear enrichment is deep into the mountains. How long will that victory actually take? And it's called rising.
Okay, this is interesting because a lot of people are talking about a potential ground invasion into Iran by Israel. I think that's extremely unlikely. You already have covert spec ops and commandos on the ground in Iran launching strikes from commando positions, at least reported by Israeli media. Who knows? Again, maybe it's propaganda. Take everything with a grain of salt. Maybe these nuclear weapons that Iran has are just the same kind of nukes that that Iran had and Saddam Hussein had, right? So take everything with a grain of salt that you hear out there. But at least what we're hearing from reporters is that commandos just absolutely are already on the ground in Iran, smoking Iran from the inside. In fact, here's some footage from the Times of Israel, a Times of Israel correspondent, and it shows commandos with night vision setting up what appear to be these almost look like mortar launchers, or they're controlling drones from over here, but you could see them with night vision goggles. Obviously, these thermal footages are a little bit blurry. But so you kind of already have special operations on the ground going on, and this is how we're getting these shots of like drone attacks against Iranian infrastructure. Like this clearly looks like some kind of launcher truck. You've got a couple pickup trucks on the right. It doesn't appear like there's any kind of human involvement here. These appear to just be stationed launcher trucks for defenses. This appears to be a potential larger ICBM, but it's very unclear exactly what this is. Is this like an oil pipeline? I don't think so, because we haven't heard of oil infrastructure getting hit. Is it an ICBM that's on the back of a truck or in a building or something? I don't know. This is a very hard one to decipher exactly what's going on here. And then you've got another shot of this potentially communications air defense vehicle. We did have reports that surface-to-surface missile batteries were destroyed by drones that were smuggled into Iran. So, Israel's doing some pretty big damage from the inside of Iran already, at least reportedly. And it's quite impressive because the targeting of these defenses of Iran is just it's crushing to Iran, and it's one of the reasons why Iran is having such a hard time responding. They've been responding with drone attacks, but their drone attacks are just getting blown out of the sky by the F-16s or whatever air equipment and defenses Israel is using, likely backed up by later, if necessary, the U.S. military, though reportedly not yet right now. So, I don't know. Let's keep going here. We'll see.
Lion. Why is that?
Well, every time.
Oh yeah, again, so point is like a full-on ground invasion might not be necessary. That's sort of the point of what I was driving with that.
And we pick a name when we have a military operation. Sometimes the computer is doing it for us, so there is no real meaning for the word of the operation. But I would say that IAEA published recently that Iran has enough uranium to create not only one bomb, multiple bombs. So
yeah, up to 15. He's referring to the IAEA. I always get this messed up. The International Atomic IAEA Energy Administration or Association or something like that. Anyway, the IAEA put out their report going, they can make a bunch of bombs, they got a bunch of enrichment, and then, Trump and Israel are like, stop making more, and then Iran is like, we're going to create a third enrichment facility or some form of third nuclear facility, right? And then Israel strikes same day. This guy's a little hard to listen to because, you've authentic accent, okay? It's kind of like if you go to Rome, you want somebody who's going to go, it's not bruschetta. Don't say bruschetta. It's bruschetta. Bruschetta, not bruschetta. What are you, American? It's authentic.
It was a matter of days to put it together. We decided not to wait, not to take that risk. We believed the threat of the Iranian. When they said that they're going to use those ballistic missiles to destroy Israel, we took it very seriously.
How much did the Israeli government brief the U.S. government?
So we talked with the U.S., but this decision was decided in Jerusalem. And we took that decision independently, not for the first time. In the 80s, I want to remind you, we had...
Independently. Like, this is like, the United States saying, hey, if you guys do it, you better tell the world that it wasn't us that was involved. We had nothing to do with this.
Attacked the nuclear reactor in Iraq. We took the decision by ourselves. When we attacked the reactor in Syria, I think it will serve the US and other Western democracies, but it was a decision that was made in Israel.
Do you think the United States will come to not just the Israeli defense, but potentially if you're needing help with more attacks?
This is such a dumb question. Now, he's going to probably answer with, well, we have very sophisticated capabilities of supporting ourselves, but we respect our allies in the United States. But what a dumb question. We already saw what happened in 2024 when Iran launched multiple intercontinental ballistic missiles and drones. Of course, the United States and the United Kingdom came to help Israel. I don't know.
If this continues for days and weeks?
Well, since the day Israel was established, we never asked the US to fight for us. We know how to fight, and we know how to defeat our enemies. We have heard threats that the Iranians are threatening the US targets, they are threatening the allies of the US
and you're
in the
closing
Gulf.
your embassy, right?
So we take precautions in different places around the world. We are aware of the threats, but we will continue. Also in Israel, we have to be honest. In Israel today, we are getting ready for serious attacks coming from Iran. It will be very intense in the next few days. We are preparing the population. And this operation, it's not only about the bravery of the pilots, it's about the population in Israel. They will have to follow the guidelines in order to avoid casualties.
Ambassador, as you know, the United States is...
It's a little bit of I feel like the Israelis at this point are kind of over this. Okay, yeah, shelter in place. And then it's kind of all right, let's have a beer and then this isn't a big deal. We're going to go outside again. How many times can you tell the Israelis to shelter in place and then nothing happens? I worry that it does create some false sense of complacency for the Israelis. But then on the flip side, it's also kind of impressive because it just means they're actually doing pretty dang well at defending right now.
Distanced themselves from this in the last 24 hours and said they weren't part of the attack. What's not clear to us is whether they assisted in the defense of Israel. Did they?
Well, we have capabilities, and we are...
Did they assist you when they sent over drones from Iran to Israel? Did you receive any help from partners outside of Israel?
Well, as far as I know, that we were able to deal with the drones by ourselves.
Yeah, of course you're going to say that.
But we have to realize, the threat is not only against Israel. As I said earlier, Iran is threatening the allies of the US in the Gulf. So we have the capabilities. I'm not sure they have the same capabilities.
Are you worried about an asymmetrical response from Iran?
Well, we took into consideration that there will be retaliation, Anne-Marie.
Will it be proportional?
Well, they know that we have capabilities as well. So they will have to think, twice before they attack us and what they are doing. And I would say that today we can reach every target in Iran. We have the control in terms of our pilots.
Do you have intent to reach every target?
Well, we have the capability. We focused on
that's actually a good question. The first good question I heard from the doomer suits here. Do you have, I wonder if their teleprompter said that. Do you see that teleprompter right there? What does that say? No, actually, this is just a conversation because that says thank you. That's interesting. Wow, she actually came up with that question herself. This is not anti-woman, it's anti-Bloomberg.
I mentioned earlier, the ballistic missile infrastructure and the nuclear facilities.
How long will that take if you were to reach every target?
Well, it's not going to be a short operation. And it will
so is it weeks or months?
No, I wouldn't say months, but it can take days or weeks.
How long?
Days or weeks. Okay, all right. Wouldn't say months. Although I wonder, did they say that about, the Gaza invasion? I'd be really interested to see what they say about that. Let's, you know what I'm going to do really quick is I'm going to just grok it, okay? So just for the sake of time, and of course to test Elon's software, let's try it, okay? So we're going to grok, and we'll just do this here. Hey, when Israel first invaded Gaza, how long did they say the incursion would take? Let's see what it says. Searching. Come on, Grok 3. A little faster. No definitive statement. Operations. Why are you giving me 2008? Oh my gosh. In 2023, after the October invasion, you dummy. Come on, Grok. Apologies for the mix-up. Israel's defense minister stated on the 22nd that the operation could take a month or 2 or 3 to achieve the goal of destroying Hamas. Yeah, well, it's been almost 2 years. On October 27th, he reiterated that the ground incursion would be a long effort, lasting not a question of weeks, but a question of months. Okay, so 2 or 3 months, maybe a few months, is now 2 years. And this guy's saying, oh, days to weeks. So basically, whatever they say, it's going to take a lot longer.
Only is Israel at the United Nations at the moment?
Well, I will let you know in a few minutes when I go there, Jonathan. But it's gonna be tough for us. Iran already called for the Security Council to meet. Probably it will happen this afternoon.
Max says initially they said days, then changed it to months. I believe that because I remember when that incursion started and covering it. That just from memory, not going off citation here, it seemed like they were implying that this was supposed to we don't want to occupy. This is going to be really quick. Get the terrorists and move out. Nobody expected this to be a 2-year thing.
But I will tell my colleagues at the UN, where were you in the last 10 years when Iran threatened Israel? Where were you when they sent ballistic missiles? Where were you when they actually acquired the nuclear capabilities? So, words will not stop Iran. Israel will.
The international response.
Oh, what a banger line! That's a banger line. Words will not stop Iran. Israel will.
Saudi Arabia calling it heinous. The NATO Secretary General calling for de-escalation. The UN Secretary General calling for maximum restraint. Do you think there is a diplomatic route when it comes to dealing with this regime?
Well, I think that, always you have the diplomatic act, and the time for that will come. But we saw that the diplomacy didn't convince Iran to change course. For decades, they negotiated, they played the game, they lied. We had the intel that they are developing nuclear capabilities for military usage.
There's some analysis, though, that under the JCPOA, they were restrained, they were capped. They are not capped now when it comes to enrichment.
Well, with and without the JCPOA.
That's basically a way of saying that the agreement that Donald Trump tore up, the Iran deal that Donald Trump brags about tearing up, that Iran deal unlimited basically how much enriching Iran could do. And so it's kind of like a backhanded slam there at Trump where they're sort of like, hey, Trump kind of, there were limits, but he tore up that deal and now there are no limits. So there are questions about did Trump's tearing up of that deal under his first term kind of lead to some of this enriching?
They were continuing, and what we revealed only recently, that alongside the reactors and the plan that was supervised by the international community, they developed a military capability that they were hiding it from the international community. So once we realized that they are going to that direction, we decided to stop that.
Yeah. So, obviously, here we have this coverage basically of Israel telling us, hey, this is going to be an operation that's days to weeks, not months. As we've talked about, we've heard Israel say, oh, yeah, it's going to be short term. It's going to be days, not, a long term thing when they invaded Gaza. And now it's been almost 2 years. So unfortunately, it seems like some of these issues could just go on for a while. Trump tells Axios that Israel used great American equipment during the attack. Trump also tells Axios that Israel's attack could help make a deal with Iran. A battered Iran, maybe. Man. Iran's news agency says 2 loud explosions heard at the Fordow nuclear site. See, this is something else that I was looking at, we've been looking at the Natanz nuclear facility. Yesterday, we spent a lot of time looking at that nuclear facility on Google Maps. And what was interesting was, we speculated that the underground area of that Natanz nuclear facility was under the dirt. And the reason we speculated that was because you have, sort of these larger border fencings and perimeters around the outside. You have the larger perimeter out here. You've got an inner perimeter here. And there's this very clear protecting of sort of this dirt space over here. And then I even talked about how these roads sort of lead into the dirt. You've got these retaining areas here. I think it's just like blatantly obvious, that this is basically underground bunkering, right? Like, I mean, if you're going to have an underground bunker, maybe have it be a little less obvious, was sort of my opinion. Obviously now we get this talk or we get this video footage out of Israel, which is, impressive, but it's their POV, right? So it's their point of view that, yeah, this Natanz facility does indeed have bunkers underneath. So you'll be able to see that here in just a moment. But now what we're looking at is potentially another facility being struck. It's the Fordo facility, which we'll look at just in a moment. Just want to give you a reminder here of look at this bunker diagram they give. It's so cool. In fact, I just want to kind of look at, like, can we see overlay of where like that road was that disappeared? It's kind of hard to see, but it looks like they suggest that these little buildings here are your tunnel accesses. It's kind of really cool. Like, I want to build tunnels. This is awesome. This is like some movie stuff right here. Like, Netflix should be taking notes right now, Like, how many H100s do you think they have in here? Probably 0. But anywho, a lot of ACs, a lot of cooling, centrifuges. Anyway, okay, so now let's go look at the Fordo nuclear sites. So remember, Israel expects that Iran has somewhere around 10 plus nuclear facilities, and we've shown the maps for this before. We can pull that up again in just a moment, but let's first take a moment and just go to the Fordo nuclear site. And maybe that's why they're expecting this to go on for so long, because they're basically just gonna keep pounding Iran until they get all of these enrichment facilities. It's entirely possible. So let's go see what we got. Fordo, Iran. Let's see. Okay, so here's Fordo. So where's the nuclear facility here? Because the other one was on Google Maps, which I thought was really funny. I don't think that's the one. That's a different one. So here's a power plant. That's no fun. Okay, well, let's see if we get an address for this. Oh, here we go. We have coordinates. Possible coordinates of the facility are this. Did you know you could Google Maps coordinates? It's kind of cool. There we go. Ah, look, another one of those bunkery ones. Look, why else would you have all these circle roads? I don't know. To me, it just like screams bunker. Here's, oh yeah, this is all we have. And then really, these are just access points. I mean, honestly, when you see roads that go into the mountain, it's pretty obvious it's a bunker. Yeah, okay. I mean, look at this. Yeah, it literally goes right into the tunnel. So, like, how much more obvious could you be? Let's pave our giant roads and show you how to get into our bunker. So this appears to be another facility that's now getting whacked. At least according to this Reuters report. What's this? Oh, this is just now. Israeli military says it has identified the launch of missiles from Yemen towards Israel, and they are working to intercept it. Okay, that's interesting. This is just now breaking. Strikes against Israel being launched from Yemen now. P.S. Trump hit Houthis hard in Yemen to weaken exactly this type of attack. So that's interesting. I just tweeted that. I don't know, for anybody who actually wants to follow me on X, @RealMeKevin. But that's interesting because now, you're getting retaliation from other areas. Yeah, here we go. Sirens sounding in central Israel following the launch of ballistic missiles from the Houthis in Yemen. There it is. It begins. So these are now some of the counterattacks that you're going to get. It looks like you're also getting more strikes in towns north of Iran. These are just the phases of attacks. Continuing. Makes sense, but boy, it's it makes you wonder how long this is going to go on over the weekend, huh? Probably all weekend. Yeah, pretty generic footage there. Well, that's not ideal. Okay, so that's interesting. If now we have Yemenis counter... I mean, this is going to happen. So remember that Yemen is... itself isn't attacking Israel. It's generally the Houthis in Yemen that attack Israel. But as you could see, you have to launch weapons over Saudi Arabia to get to Israel. This is very unpopular. Saudi Arabia doesn't like this. They don't want their airspace used for Houthi weapons. Terrorist group, right? So what does Yemen generally like to do? They like to attack the straits, right here, Bab al-Mandab Strait, Red Sea, Gulf of Aden. We got this right here. This is where we get a lot of problems with cargo because the Houthis attack cargo ships over here. And it's a lot more expensive, obviously, to go around the Cape of Africa, Cape Town over here, whatever. To go around this, a lot more expensive than just cutting through here to get from China to Europe, for example. Then what you have is you've got concerns that straits over here could be attacked, but this potentially less likely at the moment from Yemenis Houthis. Instead, these straits could be affected, and the Gulf of Oman could be affected because of Iran. Iran's right here, right? But also keep in mind that when Israel attacks Iran, they have to fly across Syrian or Jordanese and Iraqi airspace, which is also unpopular, but is also why these countries tend to shut down their airspace when Israel and Iran are fighting. So a little bit of a mess over here. Then you've also got Hezbollah. Hezbollah attacks Israel from the north. So Hezbollah is usually, I mean, we've now got, barriers that Israel is setting up, like buffer zones between northern Israel and Lebanon. But you have Hezbollah in Lebanon that can attack Israel from the north. You've got Iran, which is failing to send over munitions and drones to Israel right now. You do have Iranian-backed terrorist groups inside of Iraq, potentially even Syria. And then, of course, you've got the Houthis over here. So Israel's got a lot of problems from a lot of different angles. Typically, you have less of a concern from the Cairo side. You typically have less of a concern from the Mediterranean. But otherwise, I mean, you're almost surrounded, right? It's tough. So now that we're hearing about these attacks against, being launched from Yemen, it just shows you're getting more and more of this sort of regional warfare. And that's what everybody's concerned about, is that this is not going to be like a 2-day war like Israel promised the Gaza incursion was going to be, or a few months and done. It ends up being this thing that just drags on forever, boils over to a regional conflict, and then oil prices just stay high and keep rising every day. Maybe not necessarily 10% per day, but 3%, 4%, 5%, 5%, right? Over and over and over again. It just compounds to a disaster, basically, for consumers broadly. Not ideal. So we shall see. Anyway, air raid sirens now also sounding in Jerusalem as this now, breaking news is expanding.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.